it was interesting because you and I saw this in the same screening, and I think, approached it, as I think many people had done, with a degree of trepidation. I know people had seen it before we saw it, but, you always wonder, what's this going to look like? What's the point? Is it going to be going back towards the Rudyard Kipling, or is it going to be, you remember when Kenneth Branagh came on, he was talking about Cinderella. He was talking about that kind of balance between, on the one hand, looking back towards the literary sources, the folklore, so the fairy tale sources, and also respecting the cartoon, and that what you're doing is kind of like a live action version of the cartoon. So I was very trepidatious about it, and I have to say I went in worrying that it wasn't going to gel. I came out, and I think we all did. It was you was there. I was there. You were there. Robin was there from the production office. Simon Paul was there. And we all.
And I was there, and you were there.
And we all came out going, "Wow, wasn't that terrific?" And there are a number of reasons why I think we all sort of were so positive about it. The first one was, I do think that there was a worry that it might not work, that it might not achieve what, because the cartoon is so fabulous. I know that I was very interested to hear Jon Favreau say in that interview that it was something that now they perhaps didn't realise the value of, which I'm absolutely astonished by, because you always think of it as being absolutely one of the mainstays. One of the films that you grew up with. It was one of the first films I ever saw in the cinema. I remember being taken to see it. I remember being really sort of profoundly affected by it, and then having the soundtrack album and all that. So I thought that a number of things. Firstly, it does a really good job of balancing threat and pathos, of menace and humour. So we start with a kind of running, jumping, action chase sequence that sort of sets the pace. It tells you, okay, fine, this is going to be. I saw that some people on Twitter were calling this the Jungle Book meets the Revenant. Well, it's not that. That's a silly thing to say. But on the other hand, there is that kind of that action packed.
And also, just say on that opening thing, don't miss the first 30 seconds.
No,
because it's
it's a really
sets the tone.
Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, you get that. Secondly, Neil Sethi is terrific as Mowgli, and there is this really weird thing when you first see him that's everything to do with his stance, the way in which he holds himself. It's that really peculiar thing about it. It is, as you said, it's almost like seeing the cartoon character that come to life. I mean, it's really quite remarkable how much he gets that stance right. That sort of, absolute, leading, sort of confident, and yet also, childlike. I think his performance is brilliant, and all the more astonishing considering the fact that what he's doing is looking around at, green and blue screens and not actually being able to see any of these creatures. I think that the world that it evokes is terrific. There is this kind of sense of dreaminess about it. I mean, yes, it's photorealist, and you do believe that what you're looking at is a real sort of three-dimensional set, but it has this photorealist feel to it. But it also has that kind of strange, dreamlike feel that everything's heightened, everything's slightly cranked up, everything's not quite real. So it's happening in a sort of half-remembered haze, which I like very much. Animal characterizations are really well done. And again, interesting in that interview that he was saying we didn't want to over-crank their responses. So in fact, what happens is it's in seeing the responses on the face of Mowgli that you actually get to understand the way in which the narrative is playing out. And then, because the way that the score works, the way the music works, is that you're hearing, there are all those sort of themes and hints that from before. And then the point at which it breaks into song, I thought worked really naturally. The point at which Bill Murray suddenly starts doing a version of Bare Necessities, although he's not really singing, he's kind of talking his way through it, I thought was really, really well done. I thought, actually, they've tipped this over into being a film with songs in it, but it isn't a musical. And I was thinking, we were talking about Magnolia before. There's that moment in Magnolia when it suddenly basically turns into a musical sequence, when everybody, I'm not saying for 1 minute the Jungle Book is like Magnolia, but I'm saying this is an example of a film which isn't a musical, but is so... It has such musicality in the way in which it tells its story that when it tips over into song, it doesn't seem in any way out of place. Christopher Walken's having great fun with the King Louie. Doing that.
What's that?
He's doing the Christopher Walken thing, and he is what is he? Is he a Gigantopithecus?
Gigantopithecus.
And of course, Richard Sherman came in to write some new lines for that song in order to make that work. So basically, I think what it has darkness, it has depth, it has the light and shade that you want from a sort of proper, fully rounded family film. It absolutely is a film which is in love with the original Disney cartoon, but also refers back to the Rudyard Kipling source. It's a movie which is made with clear hand-drawn affection, despite the fact it's all computer graphics. It's absolutely right to say that it's a hand-drawn thing. And I just sat there beaming, thinking it's working. I'm really quite surprised, but it's all coming together. And I think, although there's been a lot of stuff about the darkness and about how much, the tiger can be scary, obviously, Idris Elba's fantastic, incidentally, I don't think it tips too far. I don't think it gets too far away from the fact that, you know, it's a family film in that Disney tradition of family films that have darkness but are still for audiences of all ages.